Hello, all. So, I'm going to conclude this series of videos with a few more. Me and my hood here, going au natural to make a few points. Talked about some finer points of knife leverage and adjustment. We talked about how this applies uh, in respect to using weapons, bladed weapons. Then we did some weapons work, and now I'm going to tell you why I think Aido is basically inconsequential when it comes to Kobudo, um, the Koryu aspects, and the real combat aspects of knife. In this case, big knife, talking about sword combat. Now I will be showing you some technical aspects of that, okay? Um, the problem being that you can build bad habits when you use weapons in a manner that is more with affectation, with a certain style, impromptu, as opposed to being effective with a weapon. The other side of that is if you just try to pick up a weapon and use it, you'll get only so far through your own experience. So there are traditions that will show you how to use weapons properly. And then you have to take those traditions and go through a process of making them your own, okay? What I'm going to be showing to you today is some aspects of drawing the weapon in a real situation using sword. When I use sword, I don't put the sword onto my belt. I simply draw it. And the reason for that is many, most of which is that you're not going to be carrying a sword around anyway. I don't really care about scabbard position once I draw the weapon. I go by the philosophy and understanding that I have control over the situation. Once that sword is drawn, once that knife is thrown, it leaves my domain. So, my understanding is to use the weapon is a different aspect entirely from after I'm using the weapon and putting the weapon away. They are distinct psychological, emotional, and physical paradigms with their own concerns, okay? And my concern when I draw my weapon is to kill with it, or to try to minimize harm to me and my folk in any way possible. It's not what will precede that situation. With that being said, I want to show you some aspects of drawing a weapon for real, okay? Any of you movie buffs might well remember Fright Night, a wonderful Halloween movie, and it is Halloween today, and where the vampire, in the sequels as well, always throws it back in our main hero's face. Fright Night for real, okay? Drawing the weapon for real, okay? You'll notice my German Shepherd in the background here, don't mind him. Okay, so what I want you to look at is something that you'll hear Koryuan teachers of various traditions also mention in different contexts, but this idea that when I draw this weapon, I'm not so much pulling the weapon out, okay? What I'm doing is really working with the scabbard, okay? And in this case, I want you to watch my hip and shoulder on my left side, okay? When I'm drawing this weapon in some fashion, then I'll put my foot forwards. I don't care if you start this way, this way, this way, this way. Shouldn't matter. But again, I digress. All right. This goes back, okay? In essence, what I'm doing is a Gyoko Ryu type movement, okay? I'm turning off of my base back to allow the flexibility to let this come out, okay? The skill in doing that is positioning this point right here where I best can use the sword conveniently, okay? That could be many things. This is where things get interesting, okay? If I have to just get the sword out very quickly, somebody might be coming towards me, okay? Then just from here might be what I have to do, okay? Just to check. Okay? Same principles apply if I'm doing that. Okay, I'm throwing this hip back a little bit and the scabbard back so I can clear the weapon and then let it come down. Now this is a little ineffective because I have the whole weight of the weapon against my wrist. Okay? It's not ideal, and you can certainly draw it just as fast if I take it at a more natural angle. But the same principles apply here. Again, watch the left side of my body, okay? Boom, boom. The scabbard is getting pulled back. Okay? In this case, my angle has changed a little bit to something that's a little bit more convenient, okay? Also, once you draw that weapon, okay, you can bring this forwards again, okay? Or you can, if you have to, go back. You have a little bit of distance here if you need it. That's very important when you're dealing with a matter of inches. So for example, if I'm making this straw, as I'm walking, boom, I'm here as I cut. I'm here, I have my weight on my back because I made a decision as I made this cut that his cut might arrive first, okay? Or I can't get him where I need to be. This gives me a difference of about 5 inches, okay? For where I'm being attacked. I'm also in profile here, so he can't catch the shoulder, okay? As opposed to if I do that like this, where I'm giving myself, by being on my weight on my front, 5 inches here, to aggressively catch my opponent, okay? As far as sheathing the sword, again, you'll see different traditions. There's a couple of things to remember. It's a good habit to always work with the scabbard, okay? So once I make this draw, and I'm putting this back, to really move this, not the sword, okay? To move this hand very little. That's a good habit because it's very easy from this point to have access to drawing the sword if I need to in the interim, okay? The other thing about this is it shouldn't matter the direction you draw the sword, okay? You might be stepping here. If somebody's making maybe an attack to your left hip, okay? You might step out here to cut, okay? In that case, my draw is going to be here. And it's going to be done at a certain angle, depending on where my opponent is cutting, okay? If he is cutting to my hip, I'm going to cut above here. So as he misses, I catch him, okay? Now, you will see different setups, different kata, different traditions, but the idea is to understand your distance well enough to know where you are in relation when that attack is coming, okay? I think one good habit to train yourself is to not be afraid to move in, because moving in, 9 times out of 10, if you're at a very close range like that, is equally or more effective than moving out, okay? You may not be able to take an angle, okay? If something is such that it's attacking you and you don't have an opportunity to take that angle, you want to be here, okay? Past his attack, okay? Not trying to get away from his attack where he catches you on the end with the cut, okay? Just understand that when you draw the sword, consider this like the muzzle of a gun, okay? If I have to cut here, okay? There's nothing wrong with making a cut in this position, okay? If you have to. But no, you're cutting in this position. Don't cut here, right? No, it doesn't work that way, okay? Excuse me. If you want to cut in this direction, you might be able to set your body up to do that. You might not, okay? But it bears mentioning that, for example, if I'm cutting in this direction, don't make the mistake of trying to draw your sword here to cut. You'll get cut on your arm here, okay? If you have to cut in this direction, then you turn and you cut in this direction, okay? See the difference? In other words, if the attack comes here, I want to cut. Look familiar? Should. See this positioning? Okay. A K-saw cut, okay, is actually a weak cut, okay? It's used because of the anatomical features of the human body. When you use a K-saw cut, if you have the sword cutting through, entering and leaving the target properly, you can actually find parts of the anatomy to cut through. So you can bring the sword out on the bottom of the cut if you have a very heavy sword. And if you don't, you can bring the sword across to the throat, okay? And bring it out right under the collarbone, okay? Or where the collarbone is, all right? So it's done for that reason, as a sort of a standard, but it's actually a very weak cut, okay, because of that angle, okay? So when you make some sort of a draw this way, really think this way, okay? Then, yes, you can shorten that movement to what you need it to be, okay? You can shorten it in either direction, okay? If you want to come across here, okay? Again, here, shoot this back and turn, okay? I'm turning this hip back, or I can come in and I can go through the cut. That depends. If there's a different set of dynamics, okay? So if I'm turning this hip back, all right? Then I'm doing this more from a base, okay? To cut here. Like you might see in a lot of Aido draws, just winding up here in the blood thing. I always forget these terms when I need them. It's getting old. But I'm taking advantage of this turning movement, and this knee has to stay where it is. You cannot turn that knee out this way. You will lose your power if you're trying to cut from a base, okay? If you're trying to cut from a base, then you sink and you use this as a base, like you would do a nagash, okay? See this? See my left knee here? Doesn't move. On the other hand, if I'm making this and cutting through, then I might drive my weight through. Then this foot does turn, and I simply put my weight on this front foot, and I commit to this with my weight. Look at my right knee. The knee is not over the toes. However, as you can see, I'm committed to the strike, okay? My weight is behind it, okay? Two different types of power, okay? The second one probably has more gross power, okay? So if you really want to cut through something. So for example, you make this draw to cut through something, and you can also change your angle with this foot. But let's just be basic here and say, I'm going to cut off of this angle here, okay? So I'm here and boom, okay? This is a big, I even moved my foot a little bit, strong cut. Follow-up cuts come from here, okay? If I have to retreat, don't move the sword, move your body, okay? If I have to deflect, move into the position, be ready for a follow-up strike right away. Again, this is a case alarm, okay? So I don't get stuck. If I hit him in his head, that could be really bad. The sword can get stuck. You can't imagine trying to pull your sword out of somebody's head here. It's moving. You're gonna have a problem. So you use the queso line to cut across here, okay? Boom, and you use your left hand. The right hand just guides. Boom, okay? Like such, okay? Again, I'm cutting using weight. If I want to make a more fine-tuned cut, I can use this as a base, okay? So these are some general movement dynamics when it comes to the practical usage of the katana. Any bladed weapon, though, not just the katana. Okay, we'll stop this here.